I'm not talking to you about this. I'm not talking to you about this. Get your hand off me.
Who was there?
Get your hand off me.
Who was there? Tell me who was there.
People are looking at you.
I swear to God, Chris, I swear to God.
People are
Honestly, we're fine.
Grant, thanks.
Okay, because someone will call the police if you carry on.
Let them saying to you. You're not even listening to me, that's what. Why do I push you like that? Because you won't on to me, and you won't listen to me. Family.
All right, the video that we're seeing is one that embodies this double standard that's often associated with domestic violence. Now, it was created by Charity Mankind. The video went viral. The organization itself is actually accused of clouding the issue of domestic violence. So they have a very male-centric viewpoint as an organization. So they've been criticized that way. But I think that the real essence of the video, despite who has created it, is that it does shine a light on a double standard that is often associated, that we might treat an issue differently if it was a guy versus if it was a girl. And I want to turn it over to you right away, Carolyn. Is that something that you would have been surprised at, to see someone walk away from an issue where a guy is being pushed around versus a girl?
No, I think it's a really powerful video, and it is powerful for people who have been in that situation to watch it, because they feel understood for the very first time. I think it's hard for anybody to come forward and say that they are a victim of intimate partner violence. Absolutely, it's very hard for anybody. But I think particularly hard for men, because the number one norm in our culture for men is don't be seen as weak. Whatever happens, you got to look strong. Don't let anybody see you weak. And so to admit that you are being abused by your partner is in essence to acknowledge that, if it feels for guys like they're acknowledging that they're weak. And so a lot of guys won't tell anybody, and then they're kind of between a rock and a hard place, because if you don't tell anybody, it just keeps happening. And then if you try to do something to stop it, often then all of a sudden now you're the aggressor. And even if you want to put your hands on the woman's wrists, right, that's seen as aggressive. And so a guy feels like he has no options and he feels completely stuck. And I think we actually don't even know how many men are being abused, because nobody's going to give honest answers to that.
Yeah. I think that for myself, when I engage in conversation like this, I understand it, but out of gut reaction, if not thinking about it beforehand, but just saw a girl pushing a guy around, I think I might have done the same thing. I think I might have walked away.
Well, and you saw what happened on that video to that guy. That guy saw the other people looking uncomfortable, but they were laughing.
Yeah.
Right? And he could see that, and that's what guys imagine when they're in relationships where there's intimate partner violence. They know that people are laughing at them, and they are concerned that we're not going to appreciate, we're not going to understand, we're not going to help them remove that from the relationship, that we're going to accuse them of putting up with it.
Would you guys have laughed? Would you have turned away? What do you think you would have done in that situation? Would it have been different on either side?
Oh yeah, having witnessed that, firsthand, having witnessed either the guy pushing the girl and being aggressive, or the girl pushing the guy, totally. I mean, if I was walking through the mall and I saw a girl pushing and being abusive to a guy, I probably would have just kept on walking, to be honest with you. But but you see a man being physical towards a woman, you're stepping in and you're yelling, and that's just the gut reaction, I think. Having never been in that situation, it's never been on either being aggressive towards a woman like that, or a woman being that aggressive towards me. Yeah. It's one of those kind of foreign territory for me, to be completely honest.
The part that I found a little bit disturbing too is I think society as a whole is we're becoming, we've got a little bit of Teflon coating now, it seems to be, when it comes to violence in any respect, and just even the laughter there. You could just tell, it's like, well, this is something that's going to go viral and everything like that, and we're all going to get like the group that was laughing and stuff like that. It's just, that part really bothers me too. And going back to what you're talking about, men coming forward, a lot of women don't come forward either, right? And it must be magnified tenfold then when you think about men not coming forward to talk about violence being perpetrated.
I think both of them just have different reasons for not coming forward, right?
Of course,
it's absolutely hard to come. But what you'll notice in that video is the woman who was being hassled by the guy, the woman had the experience of the other people coming up and saying, you can't do that. And so she's going to remember that story as him being mean to her, but also other people saying, you can't. The guy is going to remember that story of, she can do that, and it's okay when she does that to me, and people think it's funny.
And they're not going to support me.
And so there's sort of a double way in which he experiences as a very painful and very negative experience for him. And so it is very different for guys, not to minimize how very painful it absolutely is for women.
Yeah. What about you, Jess? Because you had some powerful reactions to this video when you watched it.
I don't know. I'm just very skeptical of viral videos, I guess. Especially with people who kind of have an agenda. And I actually went and looked at some of the facts that this men's rights groups put out there, and some of them are actually inaccurate, and they just don't reflect a really systemic problem in society. Yeah, violence is violence, and men have to deal with domestic violence too. But I think that this video in particular just kind of clouds the issue of just what a systemic problem it is and how much it affects women. Like how women are, I just feel so much more affected by domestic violence, and just have the fact that we have to have shelters for women. It's hard for women to escape domestic violence relationship. It's hard for them. Usually the women are the one who have to take care of the children afterwards as well. And the video, honestly, it rubbed me the wrong way for those reasons. I don't think it was really one-sided, and it didn't really reflect the larger issue, I felt, which kind of angered me. And yeah, I get violence is violence, and
I think that one thing that kind of brought up for me when we talked about it earlier in the newsroom, one of the comments from one of our producers was, what about all the murdered and missing women that we never talk about as well? And yet a video like this will get all this attention, but no one's really paying attention to that issue. But just when you were saying like how it shows one side. One thing we don't even bring in here is the question of race. As soon as you, because that's sort of what hit me when we talked about the missing women. Most of them are Aboriginal women, and I wonder if it would be the same reaction from people seeing an Aboriginal couple, a guy, pushing around a girl. If it would be the same reaction, and so I don't know. That's just something that.
Yeah, that's a really
that I considered as well.
Yeah.
I long for the day when it doesn't matter what race a person is, that the reaction is the same, for sure. I think, though, that now we have the gender issue is something we need to talk about. There are resources available for women. There are shelters. There was one shelter in Canada last year, and it got shut down for lack of funding. And that was so disheartening for the fellow who was trying to get enough funding for it that he ended up killing himself because he was also a victim of domestic violence, and he felt like the system said, this is not an important issue. And so I think it's important for us to put it on the radar as a culture to say domestic violence is wrong. And I think what the research is telling us is that the violence towards women, when it happens, can be more severe than the violence that happens towards men. But when you talk with men and women about violence, the violence physically is certainly painful, but the emotional scars it leaves, it doesn't matter. Those are huge no matter what the level of physical violence, right? That the emotional scars are huge, always are huge. Physical violence is very serious, but I think we need to take very seriously the issue of violence towards men and encourage men that it's not a sign of weakness, it's not your fault, this is not something that you could have prevented, this is something that needs to be dealt with as a community to say this can't happen anymore.
When a video like this comes out and so many people watch it and engage with a little bit of conversation, how do you take that conversation and actually make it meaningful and start to change people's ideas around it?
Gosh, well, this is a great venue, right? Like you're putting it out there. I think it's important for us to have discussions in different ways and in different places. I talked about this with my kids last night. I showed the video. I asked them what they thought about it. And so we had a conversation around the supper table that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You brought some great insight to this conversation. And a bit of a heavier topic to leave things on, but definitely some food for thought. Talk about it with your kids. Talk about it with your community, right? That's the whole point of it all. So have a great week, and we'll see you here next time.